We're continuing the study of the Tariag Mitzvot, and today we're up to number 418, and that is the mitzvah well known of Ahavat Hashem. We have a mitzvah to love Hashem. It's a positive commandment, and it is in Parashat Va'et Hanan. The pasuk is well known, Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elohecha. That's in Perek Vav, pasuk He. Now the Sifri on this pasuk comments, Eni yodeya ketzad ohev adam makom. How are you supposed to reach this level to come to love Hashem? Torah does not give us the way, it just tells us the destination. But the Sifri is asking, how does one reach Ahavat Hashem? Talmud Lomar, Sifri says, actually read the next pasuk. Vehayu adevarim ha'ele asher anochi mesabecha hayom al levavecha. Which means, shemitok she'atam makir mi she'amar v'haya olam. If you come to recognize and study the work of Hashem, kilomar she'im hitbonenut b'torah tityashev ahava belev be'echreyach. So the Rab says something incredible. If a person wants to come to love Hashem, how does one come love a painter? You have to study his paintings, and then when you start to see the brilliance in his paintings, you say, wow, this guy's unbelievable, and it starts to bring you to a certain fondness and eventually to love. If a person wants to love a certain author, you don't just love the author because of who he is, you have to read his books. You start to read the books, you say, wow, this man's a genius, look how unbelievable he writes. Then you say, wow, it starts to bring you to a certain appreciation. Similarly, HaKadosh Baruch Hu wrote a book. It's called the Torah. And there's mitzvot, and there's genius in the Torah, and there's brilliance in the Torah, and it's endless. So through the study of Torah, and you start to see the wonder of the Torah itself, it comes to bring you to love of Hashem. Harambam in his halachot, in Yesodei Torah, in Perek Bet, in Halakha Aleph, he writes, and I quote, "B'sha'ash yitbonen Adam b'ma'asav ubru'av nifla'im v'gedolim." When you study the creation, and Rambam doesn't say the Torah, he says the creation, the world, v'yir'emem chokhmato she'en la'erech, and you start to see the endless genius and wisdom of the creation. The end ketz miyad hu ohev u'mishabeach u'mefa'er u'mitavet ta'ava gedola. It'll bring you to desire and great lust, Lidah Hashem, to understand who Hashem is, and ultimately bring you to the awareness of Hashem and love, like David HaMelech says, Same'ah nafshi, I'm thirsty and I yearn you and I desire you. So these are two methods, either from studying the Torah and looking at the mitzvot, it'll bring you to the love, or by studying the creation and seeing the world and its beauty and its analysis, which will also bring you to the love of Hashem. There was a story that was told of the Gadol Ador of Steinman, alav shalom. He was on a plane, and he had his head in the Gemara the whole time. And they were passing over Niagara Falls. So they told him, Rabbi, if you look out the window, you'll see Niflaot HaBoreh, the wonders of creation. And he said, I'm looking at Niflaot HaBoreh. The words of the Gemara are no less wondrous and awesome than the physical creation itself. So therefore we have two methods how to bring us to Ahavat Hashem. The Chinuch then goes on to say, what's the shoresh? Why are we commanded to love Hashem? Shelo yikayem ha'adam mitzvot Hashem yafeh rak ba'ahavato. Which is interesting. I would have thought that you have to love Hashem because He's Hashem. And the Rabbi is saying more than that. Because when you love Hashem, you'll start to be more careful in the mitzvot. You'll start to be more careful in the obligations. A person loves his wife, so he makes sure when he buys the flowers that they're fresh and they're nice and they're pretty and so on and so forth. But somebody that you don't care for, it's okay, get anything, just a token and give it to them. So the love of Hashem is going to cause you to want to do the mitzvot in a more appetizing and a more proper way. Now, the Chinuch over here tells us some of the laws of Ahavat Hashem. And he writes, Sarich leha'arich belibo, one has to fathom in his heart, Kichol ma shehu ba'olam. And this is difficult, but he says, whatever there might be in the world, whether it's osher, whether it's wealth, whether it's kavod, which he calls kavod, which is false and fake, ubanim, and even your own children, ke'ayin uchefes batohu keneged ahavat baruch hu. That means you have to get to a level where you love Hashem over anything else, even more than one's children, even more than all the other fake pleasures that there might be in this world. When the Hafetz Chaim alav shalom, he lost one of his children, and he said at the levaya that as long as he had his child alive, he had to divide his love between Hashem and his child. But now that he doesn't have a child anymore, he can devote all his love now to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I mean, the tzaddikim were interested in directing all of their love to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then the Rav writes, Sarich lehagia, the person has to reach a level, sheyargil machshevotav, you train your thought, ad shelo yeh rega ehad, that there won't even be a split second, bayom or balayla, whether it's in day or night, b'hakitzor, at least when he's awake, shelo yeh zocher ahavat adonav bechol libo. And the Rab tells us that this is a mitzvah timidit. Timidit means you can fulfill this mitzvah every single second of every single day. When a person starts to ponder and starts to think about that everything else is pales in comparison into the level that we should love Hashem. Finally, he says the mitzvah applies bechol makom, in all places, bechol zeman, at all times. It applies to male and female alike. Now, how would one transgress this sin? What does one have to do to be over on ahavat Hashem? So he says, if a person comes along and fixes his mind on material pleasures, and the vanities of this world, and he doesn't take those pleasures of this world for the sake of Hashem, like eating in order to have strength or sleeping in order to have strength, but he goes after the pleasures of this world because he loves them, that means he's showing love to something else instead of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In that case over there, Batla Aseh Zu, he has transgressed this positive commandment, Ve'onsho Gadol, and his punishment is very great. Which means, when a person starts to give credence, I once had a rabbi in the yeshiva, and one of the boys said, wow, I love this baseball player. And the rabbi said, hey, you just made a Isur Deoraita. Isur Deoraita. I thought because you're complimenting a goy, and the Torah says, Lo techonem, you're not supposed to give them compliments. He said, no, forget about that. Even if he was Jewish, what are you saying you love him? By saying you love him, that means you're taking away from the love of Hashem. Or worse, you love him and you love Hashem. How can you use the same word on a baseball player as you're using for Kadosh Baruch Hu? It's a different level. And therefore, he was trying to train us that eventually one has to put all his emotion to the love of Hashem. That only comes through studying of Torah and studying the creation. The Minhat Chinuch writes over here that this mitzvah does not apply to Goyim, which is interesting. Although they have 7 mitzvot b'nei Noah, they do not have a mitzvah to love Hashem. He doesn't say a reason, but I could guess a reason. Because since they're not obligated to learn Torah, how could you obligate them to come to Ahavat Hashem? They're not obligated to read the book. So if they're not obligated to read the book, they'll never come to the real high levels of Ahavat Hashem. So this is something that is paramount. We read it every day in the Kiryat Shema, at least twice a day, and 3 times a day if you say Kiryat Shema Lamita, which you should. Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elohecha. And how? Ve'ayu ha'devarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levabecha. And the ultimate goal is in order to bring a person to better performance of the mitzvot.